Hi, Highland Oaks family. This is Kevin, and I'm here for your Friday devotional. You know, growing up, one of my very favorite things was not only comic books and superheroes, but your Sunday comics. And this one was one that wasn't even in my actual newspaper, but Calvin and Hobbes. You know, if you're not familiar with Calvin and Hobbes, Calvin is just a young boy making it through first grade, and Hobbes is his imaginary best friend, Tiger, who's also a stuffed animal that Calvin carries with him all through life. They get into all sorts of adventures of imagination and misunderstanding, but one of my favorite things about Calvin is that he's also just like whip smart and a real smart aleck and pretty sarcastic, which was something I could really relate to growing up. And so I have been thinking about this strip in particular. I think really embodies some of Calvin's up-to-no-goodness way of seeing the world. And so he's walking through the woods with Hobbes, and he says, you know, I think people worry too much about little things. All they do is make themselves unhappy that way. Why get an ulcer over things that don't really matter? And then Hobbes, in his wisdom, replies, you mean like the book report you're supposed to be writing right now on the book that you haven't read? And Calvin says, yeah, exactly, case in point. Obviously, not the way that we kind of would think about worry a lot, right? Calvin is just like, why can't people just get over stuff like this homework that I have to do? Just get over that. I think we think about worry in that way sometimes. It's just something to get over and not validate. And whenever I think about worry, of course, I am drawn to Jesus' words in the Sermon on the Mount as he is talking to people and telling them, don't worry about what you will eat or drink or the food that you have that keeps you alive. Don't worry about your clothes, what you will wear. Look at everything around you and all these birds and the nature that doesn't have to worry about working and all this, and yet God provides for you. And so don't worry about anything. And here's the key point, because every day has enough worry of its own. Don't worry about tomorrow and everything that's coming, because everything has enough trouble of its own as it is. Worry about what's happening right now. And, you know, I think Calvin could probably get with that, right? He's down with not having to worry about anything coming up because that allows him to shirk responsibility. And yet, worry is a really real thing. You look around, there's a lot of worry and anxiety happening right now and that you're probably experiencing. And yet, I think that when Jesus says these words, Jesus knows very well who he is talking to. He is also talking to people who are living in an uncertain time, in uncertain circumstances. And so, I think rather than telling them and burdening them with this responsibility to not worry, and it's bad if you find yourself worrying, I think Jesus might just be speaking a word of peace, right? That don't worry about what's down the line, worry about right now, because right now you are enough. Maybe you have done enough. I mean, look back on the past week that you've had, changes to work, to school, if you're a student or have a student or children at home. Each day has probably definitely had enough trouble of its own. And so I think that Jesus' word might just translate best to, you are enough, you have done enough. I'm not demanding any more of you. I'm not a God who asks you to do more and to perform. I think about this other Calvin and Hobbes title as well, right? I mean, the days are just packed, and he's just relaxing in a tree, and I wonder, as much as we see the days packed with anxiety and worry and even panic, this call to realize too that the days are just packed with God's presence, with God's abiding peace, with God's loving word that you are enough. And so my friends, God sees your worry and knows your worry and also calls you to know that the days are packed with God's presence and that you are and you have done just enough.